In Thailand, he's become a designer dictator. Here in the markets of Bangkok, Nazi symbols are in vogue. And Hitler is the rock star of fascist fashion. It's a trend that's creeping into pop culture, like this swastika t-shirt worn by a member of the Thai girl band BNK48, a recent fashion faux pas that went viral.
I was shocked. I felt it's my fault. I wasn't aware, even though I should have known.
This response from the Israeli embassy, presenting Nazi symbols by the band's singer, hurt the feelings of millions around the world whose relatives were murdered by the Nazis. But this Thai fan calls for forgiveness, saying, "Not everyone may know that Nazi symbol. Please let her learn from the mistake." Here at Chulalongkorn University, students say her claim of ignorance rings true, and that growing up, they learned little about the full scale of Nazi atrocities.
In Thailand high school, we are not taught much about that. Like even myself, I'm studying German since my high school, but we get only little knowledge about Nazi Germany. In the YouTube or social media like Facebook or Twitter, I see Thai people talking about Hitler in a good way quite a lot. Like they see Hitler as like the strong dictator or like the good leader that bring the nation to something better.
A twisted fascination that, despite the recent outcry, shows no sign of disappearing.
Let's cross over now to Tul Israngurana Ayutthaya. He's a lecturer at Bangkok's Chulalongkorn University. Mr. Tul, I suppose with us being based here in Europe, it's very hard for us to get our heads around the fact that Nazi symbols are so popular in Thailand. What do people associate Nazi symbols with in Thailand?
Well, I think there are two groups of people who tend to wear Nazi symbols on the street. But the first group of people, they are teenagers. And they do this, they wear Nazi textile because of their ignorance. They don't know the history. And they do this just simply because I think it is chic for them to wear it. And the second group of people is someone who associate Nazi symbols with manliness, virile masculinity, courage, and power. And they feel something like they are empowered with the Nazi symbol when they wear it. Well, I think there are two groups of people.
In terms of these two groups of people, what does that boil down to? Is it ignorance about the atrocities and the crimes that the Nazis committed in the Second World War, or a lack of education? What is it?
Well, actually, they don't know about the history of Nazi regime, because in Thailand, Nazi regime, Hitler, Nazi Germany have been taught in Thai high schools and in Thai universities just as part of the history of the Second World War in terms of military history and diplomatic history, but not in the other parts of the story, not in other perspectives. Say, for example, in Europe, we tend to study Nazi regime, especially in high school, as how Nazi regime destroyed the idea of Western civilization. Nazi is associated with the collapse of Western civilization in Europe, or Nazi regime is a crime against humanity. So these two concepts are totally missing in Thai educational system. And finally, I think Nazi regime is understood in Thai society not in terms of how Nazi regime had destroyed the idea of what the Germans say, Menschlichkeit. So Nazi as the collapse of Menschlichkeit and the Enlightenment idea. So this is completely unknown in Thai history, in Thailand.
Is there a particular reason that happens in Thailand, considering that in the Second World War, you had the Japanese following a virtual scorched earth policy in large parts of Southeast Asia? So there are parallels somewhat.
Well, I think basically in Asian culture, we associate soldiers and political army as the generator of law and order, as source of peace settlement. So when armies come on street, it's really okay for Thai people and for Asian people because we long for law and order, not for popular political participation.
Thanks very much for breaking that down for us. Tul Israngurana Ayutthaya from Bangkok's Chulalongkorn University. Thank you very much for speaking to us.